What if the real reason you have not reached your potential is not lack of talent, not lack of opportunity, but lack of a discipline so intense it scares you? Think about that for a moment. Not the soft version of discipline. Not the kind that shows up when you feel inspired. I'm talking about the level that keeps moving when you are tired, when you are bored, when nobody is watching. The level that does not care about your mood. The level that demands action anyway. Most people are not afraid of hard work. They are afraid of what hard work will take from them. Comfort. Distraction. Excuses. The late nights scrolling. The mornings hitting snooze. The little lies you tell yourself to protect your ego. I'll start tomorrow. I just need more time. I'm not ready yet. Those words feel safe. They feel reasonable. But they are the bars of a cage you built yourself. Your brain loves comfort. It is wired for it. It craves quick rewards. Every notification, every snack, every easy decision gives you a small hit of pleasure. And your mind says, stay here. This is safe. This is easy. But growth does not live in easy. Growth lives where your comfort ends. The scariest level of discipline begins when you stop asking, how do I feel today, and start asking, what must be done? That single shift changes everything. Because feelings change by the hour. Commitment does not. Imagine waking up and not negotiating with yourself. The alarm rings. You get up. No debate. No drama. You train when your body is sore. You work when your mind wants a break. You study when others relax. Not because you are superhuman. But because you decided your future matters more than your present comfort. That is terrifying. Because it means you can no longer hide behind circumstances. You can no longer blame your past. You can no longer wait for motivation to visit you like a guest. You become the driver. Fully responsible. Fully accountable. And here is the truth most people never realize. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, something powerful happens inside your brain. You build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. When you know you will do what you say, your posture changes. Your voice changes. Your decisions change. You stop doubting every step. Discipline at this level is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not post for attention. It works in silence. And that silence is what makes it unstoppable. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will see that this scary level of discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from regret. Freedom from being controlled by your emotions. When you master this, you do not just change your habits. You change your identity. And once that shift happens, there is no going back. And the moment you decide to live that way, something uncomfortable happens. Your excuses begin to fight back. They will sound logical. Responsible. Even intelligent. You deserve a break. You've done enough. One day won't matter. But understand this clearly, excuses are not random thoughts. They are defense mechanisms. They are your mind trying to protect you from discomfort, from effort, from the risk of failure. Excuses feel safe because they remove pressure. The second you accept one, the tension disappears. You feel relief. But that relief is expensive. It costs you growth. It costs you momentum. It costs you the future you keep saying you want. The scariest level of discipline is when excuses no longer control you. When you catch them in real time. When you hear that soft inner voice offering you an escape, and instead of obeying it, you challenge it. That moment is power. Psychology calls this cognitive control. It is your ability to override impulse with intention. It is the difference between reacting and deciding. And like a muscle, it strengthens with repetition. Every time you choose action over excuse, you are literally reshaping your brain. You are strengthening the part responsible for focus, planning, and long-term thinking. But here is why most people never reach this level. Radical ownership is heavy. It means you stop blaming your schedule. You stop blaming your upbringing. You stop blaming the economy, the weather, your mood. You look in the mirror and say, if it's going to happen, it's on me. That level of responsibility can feel overwhelming. Because now there is nowhere to hide. If you fail, it is on you. If you succeed, it is also on you. Discipline removes the comfort of excuses and replaces it with accountability. And accountability is uncomfortable at first. But it is also empowering. When you take ownership, you gain control over your response. You may not control every circumstance, but you control your effort. You control your consistency. You control your standards. Imagine the confidence that comes from knowing you will execute your plan no matter how you feel. Not perfectly. Not flawlessly. But consistently. That certainty creates inner stability. You stop being emotionally fragile. You stop being thrown off by small setbacks. You become steady. Most people are driven by emotion. When they feel motivated, they act. When they feel discouraged, they stop. Their progress rises and falls like a wave. But when your standards become stronger than your emotions, your progress becomes predictable. You show up when it's inconvenient. You focus when it's boring. You continue when it's hard. And every time you do, you send a message to yourself, I do not break my word. That message builds self-respect. And self-respect changes how you walk through the world. You no longer need external validation. You no longer need applause. You know who you are becoming. The death of excuses is not gentle. It feels like shedding skin. It feels like losing an old identity. But what you gain is far greater. You gain control. You gain momentum. You gain the quiet strength of someone who does not negotiate with weakness. And once you taste that strength, even for a week, even for a few days, you will realize something powerful. You were never incapable. You were undisciplined. And that is something you can change. When you truly accept that it is changeable, something even deeper must shift. Not just your actions. Not just your schedule. Your identity. Because behavior always follows belief. If deep down you see yourself as inconsistent, you will find a way to prove that true. If you see yourself as someone who quits, you will eventually quit. The mind is always trying to stay consistent with the story you tell about who you are. The scariest level of discipline is not about forcing habits. It is about rewriting that story. You stop saying, I'm trying to be disciplined. You start saying, I am disciplined. That small change in language carries weight. It sends a command to your brain. It raises your standard. It creates internal pressure to act in alignment with that identity. This is not fake confidence. It is intentional identity design. When you decide you are the kind of person who does what must be done, your choices begin to shift automatically. You work out not because you feel motivated, but because that is what a disciplined person does. You focus not because it is easy, but because that is who you are. You keep your promises not because someone is watching, but because breaking them would feel like betraying yourself. And the brain loves consistency. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. When your actions do not match your identity, you feel tension. Most people solve that tension by lowering their identity. They say, I guess I'm just not that driven. But at the highest level of discipline, you solve the tension by raising your actions. You act until your behavior matches the standard you set. Every completed task becomes evidence. Every early morning becomes proof. Every moment you resist distraction becomes reinforcement. You are building a case for a new version of yourself. And the more evidence you collect, the stronger the belief becomes. This is how transformation compounds. Not through one dramatic breakthrough, but through repeated alignment. Small promises kept. Small standards honored. Small battles won in silence. Over time, discipline stops feeling forced. It starts feeling natural. Skipping the work begins to feel strange. Breaking your word begins to feel uncomfortable. You no longer need external pressure because your internal standard is strong enough. That is when things become powerful. Because once discipline becomes part of your identity, no one can take it from you. Circumstances can change. Opportunities can disappear. People can doubt you. But your standard remains. Your commitment remains. You are no longer chasing motivation. You are embodying discipline. And here is the emotional reward waiting on the other side of that shift. Certainty. The quiet, unshakable certainty that you can trust yourself. That when you decide something, you follow through. That when things get hard, you do not fold. That certainty is rare. It is magnetic. It changes how others see you. But more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. You stop hoping you will succeed. You start expecting it. Not because it will be easy. Not because you are special. But because you have become someone who does not break. But understand this clearly. When you become someone who does not break, the world around you will feel different. You will feel different. Because discipline at this level creates distance. While others choose comfort, you choose growth. While others sleep in, you rise. While others complain, you execute. And that gap can feel lonely. Humans are wired for belonging. Your brain wants approval. It wants to fit in. It wants the safety of the group. So when your standards rise, when your habits change, when your priorities shift, there will be moments when you feel isolated. Moments when people do not understand why you say no. Moments when your focus makes others uncomfortable. That loneliness is a test. Most people shrink in those moments. They lower their standards to match the room. They trade long-term vision for short-term acceptance. They would rather be included than be exceptional. But the scariest level of discipline demands social courage. It demands that you are willing to stand alone if necessary. Not because you think you are better. But because you are committed to becoming better. There will be invitations you decline. Distractions you ignore. Conversations you outgrow. And yes, sometimes people will question you. They may call you obsessed. They may say you have changed. You have. Growth always looks like change from the outside. At first, the silence of your journey can feel heavy. Early mornings with no applause. Late nights with no recognition. Weeks of effort with no visible reward. But this is where your foundation is built. In the unseen hours. In the private discipline no one claps for. This is where your character hardens. When you learn to work without validation, you become dangerous in the best way. Because now your drive is internal. You are not fueled by praise. You are fueled by purpose. You are not dependent on encouragement. You are anchored in commitment. And here is the hidden gift inside that loneliness. It sharpens your focus. Without constant noise, you hear your own thoughts more clearly. Without constant comparison, you measure progress against your own standard. You stop chasing attention and start chasing excellence. Excellence is quiet. It is repetitive. It is often boring. But it is powerful. When you can sit alone with your goals and still choose discipline, you develop emotional independence. You trust your direction even when no one else sees the vision. You continue even when results are slow. You stay steady even when doubt whispers. That steadiness separates you. Because most people are distracted by the crowd. They adjust their effort based on who is watching. But when you master solitude, when you embrace the isolation that growth sometimes requires, you unlock a new level of strength. You realize you do not need everyone to understand your path. You only need to honor it. And when you can walk that path without applause, without reassurance, without permission, your discipline becomes unshakable. Now you are no longer driven by fear of judgment. You are driven by loyalty to your future. And loyalty to your future changes everything. When you are loyal to your future, you stop chasing comfort in the present. You stop betraying tomorrow for a temporary feeling today. You begin to think long-term. You begin to act long-term. And that is where the scariest level of discipline fully reveals itself. Because now, discipline is no longer something you force. It becomes your default. You do not wake up and debate whether to act. You act. You do not argue with your schedule. You follow it. You do not wait for the perfect mood. You move regardless. The internal resistance that once felt overwhelming begins to shrink. Not because life is easier, but because you are stronger. Your standards become clear. Non-negotiable. You know what you will tolerate from yourself, and more importantly, what you will not. You no longer accept half-effort. You no longer justify inconsistency. You no longer allow emotions to override commitment. This is mastery of self-regulation. When your long-term vision consistently overrides short-term impulse. When the voice of discipline speaks louder than the voice of comfort. That voice becomes familiar. Steady. Authoritative. And here is what makes this level so powerful. It compounds. One disciplined day feels small. One focused hour feels ordinary. One resisted temptation feels insignificant. But repeated daily, those actions stack. They multiply. They create momentum that becomes impossible to ignore. Your body grows stronger. Your mind grows sharper. Your skills grow deeper. Your confidence grows quieter but heavier. You begin to carry yourself differently because you know the work you have done. Most people underestimate this phase because it looks slow. There is no dramatic explosion. No overnight success. Just repetition. Just consistency. Just quiet execution. But beneath the surface, transformation is building pressure. Then one day, the results show. People call you talented. They call you gifted. They call you lucky. They do not see the mornings you wanted to quit but didn't. The nights you stayed focused. The invitations you declined. The excuses you destroyed. They see the outcome. You lived the process. And the most powerful part is this, you know it was earned. That knowledge creates unshakable confidence. Not arrogance. Not ego. Certainty. The certainty that if you apply yourself, you will improve. The certainty that if you commit, you will grow. The certainty that you are no longer at the mercy of your moods. Imagine living this way for a year. No broken promises to yourself. No emotional negotiations. Just clear standards and daily execution. Your life would not just improve. It would transform. This level of discipline does not require genius. It does not require perfect circumstances. It requires a decision. A decision repeated every day, especially when it is inconvenient. So decide. Decide that your future deserves your loyalty. Decide that your standards are permanent. Decide that quitting is no longer an option you entertain. And then do the work. Quietly. Consistently. Relentlessly. Because the scariest level of discipline is not terrifying once you live inside it. It is liberating. It is liberating because for the first time in your life, you are no longer controlled by impulses. You are no longer dragged around by moods, distractions, or fear. You are operating from choice. From intention. From power. And that power changes how you see everything. Problems stop looking like threats. They start looking like training. Pressure stops feeling unfair. It starts feeling necessary. You begin to understand that difficulty is not blocking your path. It is building your capacity. At this level, discipline is no longer about forcing yourself to suffer. It is about protecting your standards. You guard your time. You guard your energy. You guard your focus. Not because you are rigid, but because you finally understand the cost of carelessness. Every distraction has a price. Every delay has a consequence. Every broken promise weakens identity. And you have worked too hard to weaken who you are becoming. This is where mental toughness becomes quiet and automatic. You no longer need hype. You no longer need constant reminders. Your habits carry you. Your routines anchor you. When chaos appears, you do not collapse. You respond. That response is everything. Because life will test you. There will be setbacks. There will be fatigue. There will be days when progress feels invisible. But now, you do not interpret struggle as a sign to quit. You interpret it as a signal to double down. This is the difference between interest and commitment. When you are interested, you act when it is convenient. When you are committed, you act when it is uncomfortable. And commitment builds resilience. Resilience is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is built in the small moments when you could choose easy but choose effort instead. It is built when no one would blame you for stopping, yet you continue anyway. It is built when results are delayed, but your standards are not. At this point, you are no longer chasing motivation. You have outgrown it. You understand that motivation is emotional and temporary. Discipline is structural and permanent. You wake up and execute because that is who you are. You handle adversity because that is what you trained for. You stay focused because you have practiced focus. Everything becomes intentional. And with that intention comes clarity. You know where you are going. You know why you are going there. You know what it costs. And you have already decided that the cost is worth it. That clarity eliminates hesitation. It eliminates confusion. It eliminates the constant internal debate that drains so many people. Now there is just action. Steady. Measured. Relentless action. And here is the ultimate reward waiting on the other side of this level of discipline, self-respect so deep it cannot be shaken. The kind of self-respect that does not depend on applause, income, status, or validation. The kind that comes from knowing you did not fold when it was hard. When you reach that point, fear loses its grip. Doubt loses its volume. You are no longer asking whether you are capable. You are proving it daily. That is the scariest level of discipline. Not because it is extreme. But because once you step into it, you realize you were always capable of more. And now, you refuse to live beneath that truth.